And behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. Hey, look, our shirts are matching now. Almost. Matching in color.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have Gators Love People. And I have Whiskey and Dead Lips.
No, don't look at the hand. Josh Heston loves dillos.
My nickname in high school was Armadillo. Because I didn't say anything. I just sat in the corner.
Not without permission.
Alejandro, may I stroke your little brass hairs?
You may love me and touch me with your fingertips.
Is that a good sound?
See?
That's getting out of hand.
Good touch. Good armadillo touch.
All right. Round two.
Round two. Almost round two.
Yep.
Yes. No reason to bring up moonshine at a time like this.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't either. So here we go. Welcome to the State of the Ozarks podcast. This is Josh Heston, Editor-in-Chief.
And this is Ethan Grubaugh.
And we're talking about our Ozarks.
Your community. And this episode of Been Thinking About has been brought to you by
Stafford's Barbershop and Shave Company, the place for men in downtown Branson.
Shepherd the Musical, rediscovering America's story.
And the Taney County Health Department, creating opportunities for healthy lives in our community. Oh, I do sound like a broken record, but they are good folks.
Yeah.
Very, very good folks. And just saw Josh Stafford last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, hence the haircut.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
I haven't been able... I need to go back, but my days off have been Sunday and Monday.
And that doesn't really work for barbers.
No.
It's an unspoken law that barbers do not open up on Monday.
Yeah, why is that?
I'm not exactly sure, but back in the old days and in the big cities, it was a good way to get your kneecaps broken. If you decided to open up on a day that none of the other barbers were open.
Really?
Yeah, kind of, off-record mafia rules, I think.
Gotcha.
That kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Chicago, New York, Boston.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry about that too much here.
No, but now it's just kind of become...
Common, well, and courtesy. Courtesy on that. And of course, we have a... yet another podcast and yet another State of the Ozarks weekly.
Yeah.
To be talking about. What did you think about this week?
This one, been thinking about, or what have I been thinking about?
Either one.
Well, the been thinking about is the memory of trees.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about...
Been thinking about trees?
Sure.
You ain't been thinking about trees. What have you been thinking about?
I don't know. We'll just go with trees.
Oh, no. We got plenty of time. What have you been thinking about?
This isn't going to be a therapy session.
Just lean back on the couch and tell me about trees.
Let's see, it all started when I was born.
Were there trees?
Maybe, I don't know.
Oh, at the very least we do
There
have
was
fun.
snow.
There was snow. You were born in the winter time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was born in the fall.
And see, everybody has nice birthdays except for me. Mine's going to be cold every year.
Oh, well.
Can't go outside and play games with your friends. You have to stay inside.
I didn't have friends.
Anyway, about trees.
I had trees instead. I did not have friends. I did have a pet goat. I grew up more in the Ozarks for somebody who was never in the Ozarks than anybody else I know. And actually, the first time that your dad came to visit, he was there for like 30 minutes, and he looked at me and went, "How did you get 30 acres of the Ozarks in the middle of Illinois?" And it's a good question, and my mom had a lot to do with that. And of course, I think in some ways this article, it is serious. The article is really dedicated, in unspoken dedication to my mom. She really taught me how I feel about nature, and trees in this particular case. And they were very, very special. It was one of the first things that I learned as a child, was what all the trees were. And what all the animals were, what all the trees were. And it was a good way to grow up. And I mentioned on there, not that there's anything wrong with hippie tree huggers, but, I love woodworking, I love lumber, Chainsaws are cool. I love animals in all forms, particularly if they're on my plate, and gravy is a plus.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something really majestic about the forest.
Yeah, there really is. Because, I mean, we have the one right behind the house here.
Yes.
And when I was younger, we would go just back in there and explore, just have fun, you know, see what we could find, what we could run into, who we could run into. But it's just something about being out there in the woods just felt free.
And very natural.
Mm-hmm.
Very natural. I think it's an important experience for kids to have growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think there's some things that ideally one does experience growing up. One of them is being able to spend that time in what we always called the timber. We never called it the woods. We never called it the forest. We called it the timber. It was city people that called it the forest. We called it the timber. And the other thing that I'm really grateful for is growing up with the responsibility and the accountability that is required from taking care of animals. That was a really, we started gathering, even when I was first born, we had a dog.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time I was 6, we had augmented that with one horse and a bunch of chickens. And by the time I was 10, there was a whole bunch of goats, and there was ducks, and more dogs, and at least one cat, and ducks, if I didn't already say that. At one point, we even had a pot-bellied pig in the barn. We had, one of at least almost everything. And there's something really, really powerful about the fact that you can't put off chores regardless of what the weather is. Regardless of whether you feel like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta do it. And if you don't, then there's an animal that is going to be either going hungry or thirsty because of your laziness. And there's really no way around that. I don't know what that has to do with trees, but it was, to me, it's, all connected.
Yeah. Yeah, closest thing I had to taking care of animals growing up was our little Cairn Terrier.
Yes. Yeah. He was a sweetie.
Yeah. But getting up at much earlier than I wanted to just to walk him around outside for 20 minutes before I had to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
Just for him to usually not do anything was kind of frustrating.
Frustration is part of the character development program.
Only me, too. No one else got to.
It was your privilege.
Yeah.
That's why you're such a great person.
Yeah.
It's all because of Chewy.
Yeah, okay, I'll take that.
And the biscuits and gravy.
Yeah.
And I'm who I am because of the trees. Which comes along with, we've got a couple of articles about trees in this week.
Yeah.
One of them is an article. It's not a long article. It's really just an introduction to different tree species. Some people know a lot about oak. Some people know a lot more than I do. But a lot of people have no idea that there's more than one type of oak. And we really cover a bunch of different oak species in the article. And, of course, all the photography is mine. Huge confession. This is confession time. The photos in this particular article, State of the Ozarks, was taken when I was still commuting between Central Illinois and the Ozarks to develop State of the Ozarks. So these photos are not from the Ozarks. I know. They're all from my backyard. And however, the tree species, the oak species, the shingle oak, the white oak, the black oak, Quercus palustris, all of these species are hardwoods that their original native range goes from the Ozarks well into Illinois and of course Indiana, pretty much anywhere in the approximate Midwest, the moderate temperate Midwestern region that has hardwoods. And so it's a very close approximation. If I didn't tell anybody, they probably wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only one I can recognize from these pictures is the white oak.
Is white oak, and that's what is heavily populated in this area. And something that I was having discussion with Jim Fisher a couple of weeks ago in building up toward an article on Chadwick, but there's very little virgin timber left in the Ozarks. And between 1850 and 1900, almost all of the Ozark Mountains were logged off.
Oh.
So almost all of the timber that you see today has been new growth in the 20th century.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that. How people would come to Chadwick to sell timber.
Sell the timber to the railroads, and thousands of miles of western cross-country transcontinental railroad lines were laid with Ozark white oak, and other oak as well. But the white oak was the most populous, or the easiest to come by.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful trees. And this is a little bit of an aside, but one of the things that struck me, even as a newcomer to the Ozarks, was of course the trees. And along with that, going out to Silver Dollar City, it was a theme park unlike any other that I'd ever been in. It was a theme park unlike any other that I'd ever been in because of the number of trees. There is so much shade. There are trees growing through buildings, more so then at the time, and it was an amazing experience.
Well, it's funny you say that because my only two theme parks that I can really say that I've been to have been Silver Dollar City and then Dollywood. So I don't know any different.
Yeah. Well, you're ahead of me. I've never been to Dollywood.
I vaguely remember it. It was when I was like 9 or 7 or something like that. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, good times.
Yeah.
I had been to Six Flags in St. Louis.
Yeah, I haven't been there.
It's fun. They've done a really good job up there. And interestingly enough, even though it's part of the St. Louis Metroplex, this does come back to apply to what we're talking about, is that Six Flags St. Louis is geographically within the Ozarks.
Yeah, because it's in the river country.
Yeah, and it's a chunk of the St. Louis Metroplex is geographically or geologically within the Ozarks, which I think is funny because so much of it culturally is the city, and is not what individuals would think of as Ozark Hill Country, but geologically it is.
Yeah, because basically once you get outside of Springfield, it starts to kind of flatten out.
Yeah, if you're, and that's, that would not, of course, a quick shout out, quick note, then we'll come back to this, but quick note, the other feature article this week was written by the late Jim Barrett, and it's a neat article. It's a very thought-provoking, thoughtful article, specifically dedicated to trees, and Jim donated or provided this article to State of the Ozarks a number of years ago. He's since passed away, but Jim spent the bulk of his life, by the time I met him, he was in his mid-80s, living in Kimberling City, and he had come down from the Kansas City area as a developer in the late 50s or the early 60s, and so he had really become a part of the process, but a big part of the culture, and he knew a lot about the Ozarks as a result. And and Jim was very successful, particularly in the Kimberling City area, where he was very, very well known. And we had the opportunity to sit down and chat a number of times. And then he also provided several stories. We'll be republishing, rolling those stories out through the spring. One of them was dedicated to Silver Dollar City, which, of course, he had memories of going out to Silver Dollar City, first name basis with many of the Hershans, and going out to the city when you could just walk on park and you parked on the square and there was no cost to get in.
Cool.
So
that's been a long time ago.
Yes, that's how they started. That is how they started. So we're going to revisit that in March, in some return to the old days of Silver Dollar City, which, despite all the changes, is a place that's very dear to my heart. Of course, you grew up in and out.
Yeah, because Dad did multiple things for the city.
Yes.
First he worked there, but that was before me. But then, he'd also play in a gospel, or like Southern gospel, I guess you could call it, like bluegrass, folksy.
Surely Goodness and Mercy.
Surely Goodness and Mercy.
That's how I met your dad.
Yeah. And then
singing on stage at the gazebo.
And then, of course, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 times a year, he'd preach at the
Oh, at the Wilderness
at
Church.
the Wilderness Church.
Yeah, so the pastor.
So sometimes, it'd be fun because I could, spend the day at the amusement park on Sunday rather than
going to church.
Yeah. Even though I still, of course, went to church, but
you went to church, but then you could hang out at somewhere else afterwards.
Yeah, I could go have church and then go get cotton candy.
Yes,
I never did, but I could have.
Church plus funnel cake.
Yeah.
What a beautiful combination.
So that was fun, and then also sometimes we'd go through, because there was one time that it was just he and I. When he preached at the Wilderness Church, I can't remember why exactly, but he brought me along, and so we went back behind through the employee entrance.
Yeah.
So that was fun, unique, I guess.
Absolutely, and it's so many people have so many different memories of the city, but it's a little awe-inspiring when you think about it, because millions and millions of people have gone through those turnstiles, and then for you, you got to be there, essentially behind the scenes.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever paid to go in.
That's fair.
Yeah. Of course, it's been probably 3 years now since the last time I've been there.
Welcome to working.
Yeah.
On so many levels, but fortunately you're not working tonight, which I'm glad about. And coming back to you mentioned the topography of the Ozarks, and Ozarks is a funny thing, and a lot of people actually are in the Ozarks and they don't realize it, and certainly a lot of travelers will be in the Ozarks for a long time and have no idea where it begins, where it ends. The Ozarks Plateau is, of course, I think we mentioned this, is massive.
Yeah.
If you're coming down from the north, and that's how I traditionally came in, because I'm a Yankee, coming into the Ozarks from the north, either coming down I-44 from St. Louis, or coming down Highway 65 from Iowa, or coming down through Jeff City. And what a lot of people don't realize, let's say you take, you're coming through St. Louis, I-44, pretty much from the south side of St. Louis, geologically, you're on the Ozarks Plateau. Even though you're still in the city, you are in the Ozarks. And going directly south from there, you're going to get into the lead mine district of the St. Francois Mountains. It's a very different mountain part of the Ozarks. And you'll know when you get out of the Ozarks heading south, because you'll get into Delta country, the Delta country of the Mississippi River Delta, down by past or south of Cape Girardeau, or heading east from Poplar Bluff. And it's very obvious if you drive it, you know it, because you drop off the bluff, and then you're in flat country with a lot of sediment. Of course, coming down from Highway 65. Or coming down from Kansas City, Highway 13, it's a really unique experience, because that is the most subtle transitional process. You're transitioning from Kansas grassland into Ozark rock. And the Ozark Plateau is not so much, it's not an upland up into the mountains, as much as it just kind of got worn away by erosion. So you don't so much drive up into the mountains as you do drive down into the hollers.
Yeah.
And then the rocks get higher. And so, as far north as Sedalia is actually in the Ozarks.
Really?
Yeah. From a geological standpoint, it's a transitional grassland to Ozarks area, and the Osage River is up there. And Warsaw, Missouri, Sedalia, Missouri, that's pushing the edges, but from a geological standpoint, it's still in the Ozarks. When you come down in through Jeff City, as soon as you cross the Missouri River, you're technically within the Ozarks Plateau, and geologically, even though a lot of people in that area might not even know that they're in the Ozarks.
Yeah.
A portion of the Ozarks extend over to Tahlequah into eastern Oklahoma, and then on the south side, it's almost to the Arkansas River Valley. Basically, the Arkansas River Valley is the southern edge down by Ozark, Arkansas, and then almost to Little Rock. And that's one of my favorites, because if you drive down, and we did this one time, we did this one time. We came down to Ozark, Arkansas. It was early spring, and there was a thunderstorm going on over the mountains. And it was one of the few places that I've been in the Ozarks that you can look back and you can see the hills. You can be like, there are the Ozark Mountains. If I drive that way, I will increase my elevation and go into the mountains. It was amazing. It was one of those nights where it was like really clear where we were, and the spring peepers were going crazy, and then there was these huge thunderclouds over the Ozark Mountains. It was a magical moment, punctuated by a visit to a Whataburger for some gravy.
Yeah.
Gravy and waffle fries. So, fun times. But the Ozarks, it's a very unique place.
Yes, it is.
No, we talk about the Ozarks all the time because this is a podcast about the Ozarks. But it's not too hard to do because culturally...
There's a lot here.
There is a lot here, and it is still, even with all of the push of media, push of homogenization of culture, there's still such a strong sense of place. People in the Ozarks, by and large, certainly in the heart of the Ozarks, which is where we are, know they're from the Ozarks.
Yeah.
And it's a neat feeling. It's a neat sense of place. Of course, you're a native.
Yeah. I mean, there was one moment I was heading on a work trip down to Texas. And we got into deeper into Arkansas more than because before then I'd basically stuck around like an hour around Harrison area.
Yes.
But we got closer to Fayetteville, and we're actually like going up mountains, and to me it was a new experience, and I'm just a couple hours north.
Yes.
Being that high up in the area.
Yeah. And one of the things that, of course, we've talked about doing a series on State of the Ozarks, specifically dedicated to hiking trails, with an emphasis on Arkansas. We need to get down to Arkansas more often.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous country. Some of the most beautiful mountains of the Ozarks are in northwest Arkansas.
And then on the last podcast we talked about the cemetery where my grandparents are buried.
Yes.
And you stand there and you can just look for miles.
Yes.
Of hills, and it's really pretty.
It is absolutely gorgeous. So, folks who are listening, you've never been to the Ozarks, you should come.
Yeah.
And if you are in the Ozarks, get out more. Enjoy this place.
Yeah.
It's pretty doggone special.
Yeah.
So, to learn more, visit us on stateoftheozarks.net.
Sign up for the State of the Ozarks weekly email.
Like State of the Ozarks on Facebook.
Follow at Soto Media on Twitter.
Subscribe to Soto Media on YouTube.
And follow us on Instagram at State of the Ozarks.
Thank you for listening to Been Thinking About, the State of the Ozarks podcast with Josh.
And Ethan.
This is our Ozarks.
Your community. And that's a wrap.
Yay. Yay us. We're so special.
Yep.
Doing a podcast inebriated.
We're not
inebriated.
We have no idea what anybody's talking about. We are 100%
still on
sober.
camera.
I know. We're very good people.
Yes.
And enjoy us on YouTube.
That's right.
And if you have not already subscribed to us on YouTube, please subscribe to us on YouTube. We are goofy and fun, and you like us because we said so.